fourth dimension. Welcome everybody to the fourth dimension. Big book study, that is. My name is Kevin Olson. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Wonderful to be here. I'm very glad, I'm blessed that you guys are here. Doing this, teaching this every Tuesday night is like, it's the light of my life, man. It's the highlight of my life. It's the bright spot of my life, as we like to say at my home group. And so let's kick off with the set aside prayer. God, please help me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about me, about my fellow man, about the 12 steps. And please allow me to gain a fresh new vision, perspective, and understanding of what you, what me, what my fellow man, and the 12 steps are all about. Amen. Amen. And as this is the fourth dimension big book study, I always like to read the two parts in the book that refer to the fourth dimension specifically. One is on page 8. Bill Wilson writes, I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call the fourth dimension of existence. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. And then on page 25, Bill writes that we have found much of heaven and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. So we're going to be catapulted. We're going to be rocketed. All right. I'm looking forward to it, guys. I hope you'll come with me. And for the sake of tradition, everyone who's on the call right now, as we always do, everybody, please put one hand up like this. Everybody put another hand up like this. And everybody go, oh, yeah. I never get tired of that. I never get tired of that. That never gets old. Very good, you guys. Welcome. We are not a glum lot. We are not a glum lot. We are absolutely certain that God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. And I'm feeling pretty happy, joyous, and free today. And if you aren't, I hope you will be in about an hour's time. So with that said, guys, we kicked off right from the very beginning last night. What a joy to be back at the very beginning of the Tuesday. Hey, Ali Pasha, great to see you. Great to see all of you guys. What a joy to start over from the very beginning of the big book study again. And just incredible. I've lost count. I mean, it's countless numbers of times that we've been through the book and that we've gone through the book together. And as I said, this study started, over 15 years ago, and it started on, Sunday afternoons in each other's homes. And then we did it for a long time on Mondays in a hospital downtown Calgary. And then COVID hit and we kind of moved to the Zoom. And who could have ever guessed? Who could have ever guessed? Here we are. And all these years later, doing the big book study internationally for so many of you. And it's just such an absolute joy, an absolute pleasure. We learned last week, and we talked a little bit about, the very beginnings and the origins of AA. We're going to talk a lot more about that tonight. We're going to have a bit of a history lesson tonight on Alcoholics Anonymous and the origins of AA and where we really came from. I'll try to go through that quickly so we can get through the rest of the forwards and into the doctor's opinion next week. But there is one really foundational thing that I want everyone to take with them from last week. And it's one of the basic foundations of this study, this entire study, and everything that we do here. I want you to always be looking at what we're doing here. Hey, Cash, good to see you. Jerry, good to see you as well, by the way. There you are. Yeah, right on. I want to everyone look at what we're doing for the entirety, for the rest of the 16 weeks that we're going to be doing this together. Always look at it through this lens. And this is something that I got from Chuck Chamberlain. Okay. And if you've never listened to Chuck C, AA speaker Chuck C, don't go to bed tonight until you've listened to Chuck C. Okay. Chuck C, I'm very, very grateful to say now would be like my great grand sponsor. And I've learned a lot from him, but one of the main things that I've learned from him, one of the main things, the main foundations of this study is just this. And it's the transition that I needed to make as an alcoholic in AA. the transition that every alcoholic needs to make. And that transition, can you guys can see the whiteboard? The helicopter landing pad, as Deb called it. Can you guys see that arrow? Thumbs up if you can see the arrow. Does it look blue? Blue arrow? Thumbs up if it looks blue. Okay, good. All right, so the transition we need to make, that I needed to make in AA, is from being a taker in AA to being a giver. Okay? That's it. I needed to make the transition from selfish to service. Okay? From being a taker to a giver. And that is I always want that to be the basic foundation of this entire study. Okay? And I want you guys always to be looking and very mindful as you're here at this study. And I know how it is, like you come on Tuesday nights and it can feel like you're just tuning into a TV show. We're gonna watch The Fourth Dimension tonight, you know. It's gonna be great. And that's wonderful. And I hope that you enjoy it. And I hope that you take a lot from it. I hope that you take a lot from it so that you can give a lot later. I hope that you're taking from this study and that you're learning and you're taking this stuff back to your home groups. I hope that you're taking this stuff to your sponsees. I hope that you're taking this stuff to hospitals, to institutions, to treatment centers, to homeless shelters, because I'll tell you what, that's what I'm doing. I don't just come to this meeting on Tuesday nights and then not do anything else. I mean, that's the AA way of life. I mean, we learned last week, where are we to find people that need help? Where are we to find them? Well, we're going to find them in hospitals, institutions, and so on. We're going to find them in AA meetings. Okay. And we're going to find these people. We're going to find people who are suffering greatly and who are being ripped apart by this disease. And we have an ability to help them. We have an ability to lift them out of that disease through God's grace, through the application of the 12 steps. So I hope, and that's what we're here to learn about today together. And I hope that you're going to take something from this study with the understanding that the transition we want to make is that we're taking so that we can be giving down the road. Okay. And if you're here and you're new and this is like your first experience at a big book study, I get it. And I want you to be a taker. Okay. For like about the next 19 minutes, you get to be a taker. And then we need you to start giving back right away. Okay. Who's heard the saying before, we got to give it away to keep it. We got to give it away to keep it. Raise your hand if you've heard that before. You know what? That's not entirely true. What I've learned is that we have to get it away. We have to give it away to get it at all. Okay. That's the magic. I don't give it away to keep it. I have to give it away or I'm not getting it if I'm not giving it away. Okay. That's the whole magic of AA. The whole magic of AA is in service and in giving back. Okay. I think our book is pretty clear about that. So with that said, guys, let's get into the book. We are going to be at the foreword to the second edition. Okay. And Brad is here tonight. So Brad's going to be our reader. Another salute to Vincent for all of his excellent reading over the last couple weeks. Excellent work, buddy. And great. Thank you for your service, Vincent. And next time Brad's not around, you're my co-pilot. Okay, Vincent? You're my go-to guy. In the event that Brad's not around, you're my alternate. Okay?
Absolutely. Thanks very much. And I'm really happy to help in any way that I can.
I know you are, brother. I know you are. And see, he's giving. You see, he's not taking. You see, what's he doing? He's giving. You see, love it, love it. Yeah. Okay. So Brad's going to be reading for us. We're going to be at the forward to the second edition, which is going to be on page XV. Which again, if you're here and you're like, oh my God, like these Roman numerals, like, I was joking with someone last night that the first time I got the big book, I went right to page 1. I don't read Roman numerals. I don't read prefaces and forewords. That stuff is for losers. Okay. I don't read that stuff. I read Bill's, and I tried to read Bill's story and got nothing out of it. And if I don't read the prefaces and the forewords, the fact is I am missing a lot of very, very valuable information, particularly about the early history of Alcoholics Anonymous. And one of the things I want to do tonight, insofar as I can, is try to connect some dots for you guys, some dots just on simply on the early history of AA, how all the pieces kind of came together. And I'm going to do kind of a very protracted version of it. It's similar to a meeting that some of you will have seen me do in the past called the foundation meeting. It's going to be a very shortened version of that, but it was very important to me to understand where we came from and to understand really the heritage of AA and the magic of AA and what all the things that had to come together in order for Alcoholics Anonymous to exist. And to me, it's magical. I want to share some of that magic with you tonight, and I hope that you will find it magical as well, and supernatural. It's really supernatural how AA came together. So with that said, guys, we're gonna read the forward to the second edition, and we're going to skip back to the first edition in just a moment. But for now, let's start forward to the second edition. Over to you, Brad.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks for filling in, Vincent. I better be careful or I'll lose my job. Brad Sillitoe, recovered alcoholic. Forward to the second edition. Figures given in this forward describe the fellowship as it was in 1955. Since the original forward to this book was written in 1939, a wholesale miracle has taken place. Our earliest printing voiced the hope that every alcoholic who journeys will find the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous at his destination. Already, continues the early text, 2s and 3s and 5s of us have sprung up in other communities. 16 years.
Okay, so I just want to put some context around this. Okay, Bill Wilson, Dr. Bob get together. Dr. Bob has his last drink on June 10th, 1935. Okay, between June 10th, 1935 and 1939. About 100 alcoholics get sober. They develop the 12 steps and they write this book. Okay. And what they're saying here is, April 10th, 1939, the book goes out. And at that time, 2s and 3s and 5s of us have sprung up in other communities. And now what they're saying, this is the forward to the second edition. Now I want you guys to fast forward in your mind. Imagine you've taken a time machine and now it's 1955. Okay, it's 16 years, and now they're looking back at what's happened with this book and to Alcoholics Anonymous since since April 10th, 1939, when this book was written. Okay.
16 years have elapsed between our first printing of this book and the presentation in 1955 of our second edition. In that brief space, Alcoholics Anonymous has mushroomed into nearly 6,000 groups whose membership is far above 150,000 recovered alcoholics.
Keep reading, Brad.
Groups are to be found in each of the United States and all of the provinces of Canada. AA has flourishing communities in the British Isles, the Scandinavian countries, South Africa, South America, Mexico, Alaska, Australia, and Hawaii. All told, promising beginnings have been made in some 50 foreign countries and US possessions. Some are just now taking shape in Asia. Many of our friends encourage us by saying that this is but a beginning, only the augury of a much larger future ahead.
Okay, so I'd like everybody to skip back to the forward to the first edition. And actually, no, I apologize. Skip back to the preface. So you'll see here the second edition published in 1955. Sorry. The first edition appeared in April 1939. In the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation. Okay. So 300,000 copies of the big book go out into the world. And we just read from 300,000 books, how many alcoholics got sober? And can anybody tell me? Raise your hand if you want to unmute yourself and venture a guess. We just read it in the forward of the second edition. Anybody? Come on, somebody take a guess.
150,000.
150,000. So at that time, in 1955, in the early years of AA, remember Deb, wherever Deb is, last week I was talking about being a 1935 to 1940 member of Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? 1939 to 1955. 300,000 copies of this book go out into the world, and how many alcoholics stay sober? 150,000. That means that at that time, they had a 50% recovery rate. And that's going to be corroborated here in a little while. We're going to read through that. We're going to read those statistics. Okay, but I just want to highlight that at that time, there was nothing else to do other than the book. Alcoholics Anonymous as a fellowship didn't really exist. We were a book that gave rise to a fellowship. And now today, we're a fellowship that also happens to have a book once in a while, aren't we? You know what I'm saying? Okay. When all that was available was to study this book and take the actions contained within this book, for every book that went out, for every 2 books that went out, 1 alcoholic stayed sober. Now, look at 1976. 1976 in the preface achieved a circulation of approximately 19,550,000. Well, brothers and sisters, if that ratio maintained, that should mean we have 10 million sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous today. And I'm here to tell you, it ain't quite that big. Okay, the reality is we plateaued in about 1980. You can look at worldwide statistics, estimates of the number of sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous. We hit 2 million in about 1980 and haven't moved since. It's ebbed and flowed since there, but we haven't broken through. And my contention is that at a certain crossing point, Alcoholics Anonymous changed. We got away from the book and we got into meetings. Okay. And it was really this idea of the 3-topic discussion meeting. Okay. That really changed. And we don't say, hey, newcomers, 90 pages in 90 days or we'll refund your misery. We don't say that, do we? We don't say, 12 steps in 90 days or we'll refund your misery. No, we tell them to go to meetings, don't we? Right? You just go to meetings, newcomer, and meeting makers make it. And that's it. And people are experiencing today what we call meeting-based sobriety. And that may be fine for some people, but I've got a bad strain of this disease, brothers and sisters, I promise you. Okay. And I need the whole shebang, man. I need all of it. Okay. Yes, I need the fellowship, of course, and I love fellowship, but I needed the program of action contained in this book. Okay. And I love the promises contained within this book. And that's one of the promises, that there's a 50% chance of alcoholics who come and really tried, 50% get sober at once when we stay in the book and do what the book asks us. And I will say that in my experience and the experience of many guys that I sponsor and their sponsees, I experience about a 50% recovery rate for guys that I sponsor. And I think that's not because I'm some kind of special sponsor. It's because we do what is contained within the book and nothing else. Okay. We go through these actions, we go through these steps. They have a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, because we know that anything short of a spiritual awakening as the result of the 12 steps, I am doomed to die an alcoholic death. That is simple. Okay. So 300,000 copies of the book go out. 150,000 sober alcoholics. That's where we were at in 1955. Back to you, Brad. Forward to the 2nd edition again, please.
The spark that was to flare into the first AA group was struck in Akron, Ohio in June 1935 during the talk between a New York stockbroker.
New York stockbroker being Bill Wilson. Okay.
And an Akron physician.
Akron physician being Dr. Bob. Those are our 2 co-founders, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob.
6 months earlier, the broker had been relieved of his drink obsession by a sudden spiritual experience, following a meeting with an alcoholic friend who had been in contact with the Oxford groups of that day. He had also been greatly helped by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, a New York specialist in alcoholism who is now accounted no less than a medical saint by AA members, and whose story of the early days of our society appears in the next pages. From this doctor, the broker had learned the grave nature of alcoholism. Though he could not accept all the tenets of the Oxford groups, he was convinced of the need for moral inventory, confession of personality defects, restitution to those harmed, helpfulness to others, and the necessity of belief in and dependence upon God.
All right, guys. And so here's, so obviously there's some backstory there. And here's a bit of a history lesson I want to take you guys through. And I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to try to give you the kind of the protracted version of this. And I'm gonna write this out and I'm gonna explain this all, and then I'm going to I have a visual I'm gonna share with you on the on Zoom here, so you guys can do a screen capture for what I'm about to write out. But this is also, guys, this is also very foundational to everything that we're gonna do over the next few weeks. So I hope you'll pay attention to this, and I hope you'll also get as much out of this as I did when it was taught to me. Joe and Charlie in their big book study talk about the 3 things that every alcoholic needs to achieve recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. I need to know what my problem is. I need to know what a solution is to that problem. And I need a program of action. Program of action. Okay? Program of action that I can take to achieve this solution to overcome this problem. Well, what's the problem? Well, we just learned, Bill Wilson learned about the problem. What the problem was from Dr. William D. Silkworth, our society's great medical benefactor. From this doctor, Wilson learns what we're, for tonight, we're simply going to call the grave nature of alcoholism. Okay, and who do we get that from? We get that from Dr. Silkworth. Dr. William D. Silkworth, okay? And all I'm going to say about the grave nature of alcoholism for tonight is that there is a physical component. We call it the physical allergy, that once I start drinking, I have no control over the amount that I take. Once I drink, I lose control. And it creates within me like an addictive, almost like a heroin addict's-like craving for more alcohol. And the more that I drink, the more that I want. And anyone who is an alcoholic will understand that type of drinking, that obsessive drinking, that the more that I drink, the more that I want, and I'm like addicted, desperate for more. Okay, and I could tell a bunch of funny stories about that, and I will when we get into the chapter, the doctor's opinion next week. There's also a mental component. Okay, a physical component and a mental component. The mental component is an inability to convince myself not to pick up the drink again. So after a period of sobriety, I've sworn off, oh my God, it caused so many problems. I'm never going to drink again. I sing, we call it the alcoholic national anthem. I'm never going to drink again. Okay. And a day or a week or a month later, I have some insane thought, some curious mental twist, peculiar mental blank spot. Our book calls it many, many different things. We're going to study these things together over the next few weeks. We're going to do an in-depth understanding of step 1 of this grave nature of alcoholism, the physical component and the mental component. Suffice to say, the mental aspect of this is just the insane thought that precedes me picking up the first drink again and triggering the physical allergy, okay? So that's the problem. Bill Wilson gets that from Dr. Silkworth. But where do we get our solution from? Well, the reality is we get our solution. It begins with a guy named Roland Hazard. Okay, so Roland Hazard was a rich kid, basically. Okay, he was a rich kid, lived in Connecticut in the 1920s, and he would have this fellow Roland would have these bad attacks of the nerves, they called it at the time, nervous. He had a nervous disposition. Today we would call them panic attacks or whatnot, but at the time in the 20s they just called it nerves. Towards the early 30s and in around 1932, they decide they're really going to help Roland get well and do whatever they can to get him that way. And so they send him to Vienna. They send him to the second best psychiatrist in the world. Okay, his parents were very, very, very wealthy. They had made their fortune in textiles and like clothing, like, you know, cloth and cotton and that kind of stuff. They wanted to send him to see Sigmund Freud, the great world's most renowned psychiatrist. Most of you have probably seen Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud at that time was not accepting any new patients. So rather instead, he got in to see Dr. Carl Jung, okay, J-U-N-G. And in fact, Brad, we're going to skip ahead. It's a little bit of a history lesson here, but we're going to go to page 26 in the book, if you don't mind, Brad, if you can skip ahead there. And
read the story?
Yeah, we're not gonna read the whole story. I'm gonna fill in some of the blanks here. Just so we can go through it very quickly. But on page, it's actually on page 27, the part that I want to read.
Doctor said.
No, hang on. Hey, just yeah, sorry, Brad. Just one moment. So Roland goes to see Carl Jung, and you know what? So right here, right where Roland Hazard goes to see Carl Jung instead of Sigmund Freud, right there is one of the first kind of breaks that AA gets. Because Sigmund Freud believed that all problems of the human condition could be solved through the mind, that we could solve our own problems through what he called psychoanalysis, okay? And I would submit he's done pretty well with that theory. He's like the most preeminent psychiatrist in the world of like all time. But Carl Jung, Dr. Carl Jung believed something different. So what happens is Roland goes to see Carl Jung for a year, one-on-one for a year with Carl Jung, okay? And, you know, first of all, think about how much money that would cost to have a psychiatrist on retainer one-on-one for a year. I mean, this is the type of money that his family had. It would be like the equivalent of you or I spending a year one-on-one with Dr. Phil, okay? Can you imagine, like, you know, how's that working for you? Okay, it would be a nightmare. But he goes to work with Carl Jung. Carl Jung helps him and you know, learn the hidden thoughts and springs in his mind. And he finishes his treatment, he says, with unusual confidence. Okay, and he leaves. And he's drunk almost immediately. He's drunk again almost immediately. He has to travel back to the Eastern Seaboard to get back on the ocean liner. There's no planes at that time, so he's got to travel on a big ship back home. On the way, he stops at a friend's house in France. They toast to his brand new health, and of course, they toast with a single glass of wine. Bon santé, mon ami. You know, what could be the harm in a single glass of wine? And he takes his glass of wine, and of course, he triggers that physical allergy. He loses control, and he's face down, you know, in his own puke again, and goes back to the doctor, sobbing, you know, oh, what happened, doctor? What's wrong with me? Please, you have to help me, doctor. You have to help me. And Dr. Jung tells him the truth. Roland, I misdiagnosed him. I thought I knew, but I was wrong. You're an alcoholic. And I've never seen a single case recover to the extent that it does in you. You are going to have to be locked up or you're going to die drunk. That's it. That was a great physician's conclusion. Okay. And Roland said, are there no exceptions? Are there no exceptions? And right here, guys, is where AA really gets its first break. Because Carl Jung believed differently from Sigmund Freud, that certain problems of the human condition could be solved through what he calls a vital spiritual experience. So if you, Brad, would like to read on page 27 from where he said to the doctor, so this is Roland Hazard, you can make a note here. He said to the doctor, is there no exception?
Yes,
and
now, there is.
And this is Carl Jung. This is Dr. Carl Jung replying to Roland Hazard right here.
So he says, yes, replied the doctor, there is. Exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what are called vital spiritual experiences. To me, these occurrences are phenomena. They appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. In fact, I have been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangement within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description.
Okay, perfect. So right there, Carl Jung gives us our solution in Alcoholics Anonymous. In fact, this is step 2, guys. He gives us step 2. Okay, our solution, according to Dr. Jung, is what he calls a vital spiritual experience. Vital means life-giving. Okay, it's a life-giving spiritual experience. Okay, And you know the part in how it works where it says A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives, and B, that probably no human power could relieve our alcoholism. That part of how it works is really, it's about two people. I'll explain the second one down the road, but for right now, just understand that quotation is really about Carl Jung. Because if that great physician spending 1 year with Roland Hazard I've been trying to create these emotional rearrangements within you. And from time to time, those are successful, but I have not been successful with you. And so Roland Hazard is doomed. He's doomed. And Carl Jung says, look, you either have to find God or you're going to die. That's it. And the odds of this thing just happening to you, this spiritual awakening, are like the odds of you getting struck by lightning, you know, but good luck. And so Roland Hazard, quite humbled, returns to the United States. And as God would have it, at that time in the United States, right around the early 1930s, there was a new movement taking place. And it was originally, it was called the First Century Christian Movement. Started by a guy named Dr. Frank Buchmann, who wanted to get back to what he called first century Christian ideals. Now, okay, before you guys log off, don't worry, okay, don't go away, okay? We are not a denominational organization in AA, okay? I'm not here to talk about Christianity or the Bible or anything like that, okay? So everybody just calm down. I know how it is. I would have freaked out too, okay? But the fact is that that's kind of where we got our start. So we took some of the stuff that we have in AA simply from this first century Christian movement, which later then became known as the Oxford Group, okay? And the Oxford Group was based on really just some simple ideas. They had some ideas that there were some simple actions that anyone could take, that if I do those actions, I will get spiritually connected. Because really, Roland Hazard, when he goes back to the United States, is at the same problem that I was at when I hit steps 2 and 3, is that I believe in God and I'm making a decision I want God, but that doesn't necessarily mean I've got God, okay? If all I had to do was come to AA and surrender and just get God, then we would have a 2-step program and no one would ever relapse. Okay, but anyone who's been around AA for a little while knows that it's not like just flipping the light switch and suddenly I've got God. Okay, the problem is that there are a few people more cut off from that power than a guy like me when I got sober, filled with selfishness, self-centeredness, resentment, fear, dishonesty, all that stuff. There was too much me within me to get connected. And so the purpose of AA is to uncover, discover, and discard the things within me that are blocking me from that power, okay? And we're going to talk more about that. But Brad, would you be kind enough to go, we're jumping again, we're going to go to page 263, okay? 263 in the back of our book. It's hidden. Not a lot of people know this. I'm giving you guys a secret little cheat code right now. Not a lot of people know that this is in the book. So we're going to go to page 263 and we're going to read the original 6 steps of the Oxford Group. And we're going to see where these steps come from, because what happens is Roland Hazard comes back to the United States. He starts to hear about these Oxford Group meetings. He gets connected to the Oxford Group, starts to take those Oxford Group actions, and Roland Hazard, for the first time ever in his life, stays sober. He stays sober. So, Brad, would you be kind enough to read those steps for us?
Can I start at the bottom of 262 because that's my favorite part of the story?
Sure, and you can tell the joke too.
The day before I was due to go back to Chicago, it was Dr. Bob's afternoon off. He had me to the office and we spent 3 or 4 hours formally going through the 6-step program as it was at that time. The 6 steps were complete deflation, 1, complete deflation, 2, dependence and guidance from a higher power, 3, moral inventory, 4, confession, 5, restitution, 6, continued work with other alcoholics. So notice that he didn't say we spent the next 3 to 4 months, years, whatever it was, days, weeks going through the steps. They spent the next 3 or 4 hours doing it.
That's right. And early Alcoholics Anonymous, that's how it went, man. Okay, like 1935, you know, again, I said last week, I'm a 1935 to 1940 member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, that's how it was. There was nothing else to do. There was nothing else to do. You went through those steps and then you were immediately into service and you were going to carry that message to someone else. That's all there was. Okay, and when that's all there was, 50% of people stayed sober. Okay, so they spent 3 or 4 hours going through the steps, not 3 or 4 months or 3 or 4 years, certainly. I know when I got sober, I had old timers tell me, you know, newcomer, you just work 1 step a year. You just spend all of, you know, that first year getting a really solid step 1. And boy, I got that nailed down because I kept getting drunk over and over again. I got a real solid step 1. Thanks, old timer. Okay, no, we go through these steps quickly. Now, I'm not going to say I do it in 3 or 4 hours. That wouldn't be reasonable. If I can get a sponsee through it in 3 or 4 days, I mean, that's miraculous. 3 or 4 weeks is pretty good. And some people would say even that is too long. Okay, and I'm not here to debate that, but 3 or 4 hours, that's not debatable. That is the genesis of AA. That's our granddaddy, man. That's Dr. Bob. That's how Dr. Bob got people sober. And that was it. That was it in 3 or 4 hours. Okay. So there's the you can see the evolution of the 12 steps coming out of that. Okay. So number 1, complete deflation. Complete deflation of what? A bottle of vodka? No, complete deflation of our ego. And we all seem to know that. If you ask an alcoholic, we all seem to know it's that ego deflation, right? So that's really steps 1, 2, and 3. Then it says confession and moral inventory, right? I don't have them in front of me, but that's that is you know, our steps 4 and 5. And then restitution. Okay, that's our steps 8 and 9, and then continued service to other alcoholics. That is our step 12. So really boiled down, guys, I like to think of our program like this. Okay, number 1, surrender. 2, confession. 3, restitution. And 4, service. Okay, and who do we get those from? Who do we get that program of action from? We get it from the Oxford Group. Okay, we get it from the Oxford Group. So, okay, so how does this all? What does this have to do with Bill Wilson? How does this all come together? Well, let me connect those dots for you. Roland Hazard at one point is approached by a couple of his friends. So Roland Hazard is sober now. He's in the Oxford Group. He's done the work. He's a couple months sober, and he's brought a couple of his friends come to see him. Some guys named Seba Graves and Shep Cornell. They had weird names in Eastern United States in the 30s. I don't know. I didn't name them. But Roland Hazard and Seba Graves and Shep Cornell. They come to Roland and they say, hey, an old friend of ours is just arrested for his 3rd DUI in the state of Connecticut. And it's actually in the state of Vermont at that time. So in Vermont, and he's going to jail. And maybe he's an old friend of ours. Maybe you can go speak to the judge, Roland, because your father knows the judge. And maybe if you talk to the judge, you can tell him what's happened for you, what we've done for you, that you did this spiritual work, and that maybe our friend Ebby Thatcher won't have to go to jail. Okay, and we can read where this happens. So we're going to go to page 8, okay, in the book, and we're going to read a story at the bottom there, where he's going to say, but he did no ranting.
Bottom of page 9.
Bottom of page 9. Thank you very much. Bottom of page 9. So this is now, guys, and I'm connecting these dots a little bit, and I'm jumping around a little bit, but it'll all come together. Ebby Thatcher now, he's recalling a story. He's recalling the story, what happened to him. And he is now sitting in Bill Wilson's kitchen, telling Bill Wilson what happened to him, okay, with Roland Hazard and these 2 other individuals who came. Would you read that for us, please, Brad?
But he did no ranting. In a matter-of-fact way, he told how 2 men had appeared in court, persuading the judge to suspend his commitment. They had told of a simple religious idea and a practical program of action. That was 2 months ago, and the result was self-evident. It worked.
Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. So, so it says how 2 men had appeared in court convincing the judge to suspend his commitment. On the Friday, Seba Graves and Shep Cornell came and talked to the judge, and the judge says, well, you say you have someone that knows me, that can speak on his behalf, bring him back on Monday, but your friend Ebby's gonna have to spend the weekend in jail. Ebby spent the weekend in jail. On Monday, they brought Roland Hazard with them, and the 3 of them convinced the judge to suspend the commitment. Now, notice what they say. They spoke of a simple religious idea, okay, this vital spiritual experience, conquering alcoholism, and practical program of action: surrender, confession, restitution, and service. And by the way, incidentally, guys, so this is the original steps of the Oxford group, but what is the program of action that we have today? Our program of action, of course, is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, that is our program of action. Anyone who will do these 12 steps can overcome, can achieve this solution, can achieve this vital spiritual experience to overcome this problem. Okay, so what I want you guys to understand is that Roland Hazard gets sober in the Oxford group. He comes and gets Ebby Thatcher sober. Ebby Thatcher now is 2 months sober, and he thinks to himself, okay, I've got to go carry this message to someone else. His friends actually say to him, you know, Ebby, it's time for you to go testify to someone. And Ebby thinks, like, I don't want to go testify. Like, that's embarrassing. Leave me alone. And they say, Ebby, would you rather go testify, or would you rather go back to jail in Vermont? And suddenly Ebby was struck with the spirit of service that so he thinks to himself, who can I go talk to? What old friend of mine, my old drinking buddy, can I go talk to that he'll be so blackout drunk when I go see him, he won't even remember I was there. Okay, who's the biggest loser I can think of? Enter our co-founder, Bill Wilson. Okay, Ebby Thatcher, in a magical moment of historical monument in Alcoholics Anonymous, Ebby Thatcher goes to visit Bill Wilson. And in that moment, Bill Wilson, who is, by the way, not more intelligent than any of us, he is not more spiritual than any of us, he is not God's special chosen little snowflake or anything like that. We're not a cult. We don't worship Bill Wilson. But the fact is that in the moment that Ebby Thatcher comes and sits down in Bill's kitchen and gives Bill the solution and the program of action, remember, Bill had already gotten the grave nature of alcoholism from Dr. Silkworth. And so the real key to Bill Wilson, what's really interesting about Bill Wilson, what's important about Bill Wilson, is that in his kitchen, in the moment when Ebby Thatcher comes and shares the solution and the program of action with him, having already been given the problem, Bill W., our co-founder, becomes the first person in the history of the world to have access to all 3 pieces of information. Okay, and that is what is unique about Bill. Bill was the first person given by God these 3 pieces of information that you and I need to get sober. He knew what the problem was from Dr. Silkworth. He knew what the solution and the program of action were from Carl Jung, through the Oxford group, through Roland Hazard, to Ebby Thatcher, who brought it to Bill in his kitchen. Okay, I hope that makes some sense. And by the way, let me point this out as well, because I always think this is interesting. Who gives us the problem? Dr. Silkworth. Okay, who gives us the solution? Dr. Jung. Who gives us the program of action? The Oxford group. Now here's a question for you. Is Dr. Silkworth an alcoholic? No, he was not. Is Dr. Jung an alcoholic? No, he was not. Were the Oxford group, were they alcoholics? No, not at all. They had nothing to do with not drinking. In fact, for a while, Alcoholics Anonymous, before we were called Alcoholics Anonymous, we were just known as the drunk squad of the Oxford group. The Oxford group were just kind of upper middle class people who just wanted to have a deeper experience of God. They were religious people. And here's this guy, you know, Ebby Thatcher and Bill Wilson, you know, coming in and puking street drunks in the middle of their nice little church meeting, these nice little old ladies with their tea sets and their doilies, and we were bringing in alkies to come get sober at this Oxford group. No, they were not. All they wanted to do was have a deeper experience of God. And you know what, guys? That changed my understanding of Alcoholics Anonymous. What are we doing here? What is my real purpose here? My purpose is not to stop drinking. I need to stop focusing on the problem and start focusing on the solution. This is what I'm here for. I'm here to develop this relationship with God of my own understanding through the application that I can access that power through these steps. And if I do that, I don't have to worry about this problem. See, what I was doing though was going to 3-topic discussion meetings and talking about the problem, and getting nowhere and getting drunk again. Okay, because that's sitting in meetings and talking about my problem is not a solution to alcoholism. Okay, you guys with me on that? That is not a solution to alcoholism. In fact, what should my motive in going to meetings be? I'm not a taker anymore, I'm a giver. My motive in going to meetings ought to be, once I've had this experience, to go and find someone new to help. Okay, my sponsees today talk about, Kevin, we're going fishing. We're going fishing tonight. And I know what they mean. They're not going to a lake. They're going to an AA meeting to go find sponsees. That should be my motivation in going to meetings. So, Dr. Sokrat, not an alcoholic. Dr. Young, not an alcoholic. Oxford group, not alcoholics. But yet these non-alcoholic people came together to give us this solution. I think it's because God got tired of seeing drunks like me die alone from this horrible, wretched, miserable disease. And he gave us a solution through these non-alcoholic people to a drunk by the name of Bill Wilson. Okay. So that's the story, guys. Now let's go back to the forward to the second edition, please.
So we're back on page XVI.
Thank you, Brad.
Prior to his journey to Akron, the broker had worked hard with many alcoholics on the theory that only an alcoholic could help an alcoholic. But he had succeeded only in keeping sober himself. The broker had gone to Akron on a business venture which had collapsed, leaving him greatly in fear that he might start drinking again. He suddenly realized that in order to save himself, he must carry his message to another alcoholic. That alcoholic turned out to be the Akron physician. This physician.
Okay, so Bill Wilson gets sober. He gets sober. He goes back into the town's hospital with Dr. Zucker. We'll talk about this more next week. December 11th, 1934 is Bill Wilson's last drink. Between December 11th, 1934 and June 10th, 1935, when AA starts, Bill Wilson is continually working with alcoholics, and he's working with drunks, and he's working with drunks and trying to get other alcoholics sober. What happens is he travels to Akron on a business venture. The business venture falls flat. Okay, he loses a lot of money. He then realizes he's in the lobby of the hotel, and he can hear the bar down the hall, and he knows he's going to get drunk. And in that moment, he is restored to sanity by God's grace. And rather than going to get drunk, he goes and picks up a phone and starts calling. Okay, and there's a whole story behind that I'll save for another day. Suffice to say, he gets connected to Dr. Bob Smith, and Dr. Bob Smith. Then when Dr. Bob gets sober on June 10th, 1935, that is the birth date of Alcoholics Anonymous. Our birth date is not begin from Bill Wilson's sober date, December 11th, 1934. Alcoholics Anonymous birth date begins when there's two of us. That is when AA begins, June 10th, 1935. That is the birth date of AA, when it's a fellowship, okay? Not one of us alone, okay? And so that's what this story is now talking about.
The physician had repeatedly tried spiritual means to resolve his alcoholic dilemma, but had failed. But when the broker gave him Dr. Silkworth's description of alcoholism and its hopelessness, the physician began to pursue the spiritual remedy for his malady with a willingness he had never before been able to muster. He sobered never to drink again up to the moment of his death in 1950. This seemed to prove that one alcoholic could affect another as no non-alcoholic could. It also indicated that strenuous work, one alcoholic with another, was vital to permanent recovery.
Okay, so I just want to point out, one of the things that's interesting is talking about the physician here again, and I just want to define. I don't want to confuse things. Okay, The physician is not Dr. Silkworth, and the physician is not Dr. Young. The physician here that they're talking about is Dr. Bob. Okay, our co-founder, Dr. Bob. So Bill Wilson is getting sober, and he gets Dr. Bob sober. And what it's saying is that Dr. Bob had repeatedly tried spiritual means. In fact, Dr. Bob had already been attending Oxford group meetings. Okay, so he knew to some extent that there was something there in spirituality that was meaningful for him. But what piece of the puzzle did Dr. Bob not have that Bill Wilson provided for him? The problem, he did not understand what Dr. Silkworth, the grave nature of alcoholism. He didn't understand the physicality, and he didn't understand the mental obsession. And that's why it's so essential that when we're working with newcomers, that we don't lead with the spiritual piece necessarily. Okay, what we want to lead with is that we drink like they drank, we think like they think, and we feel like they feel, and we have found a way out of that. Okay, because in fact, Dr. Bob said about Bill Wilson, that man is the first person that ever understands the way that I feel, and he's the first person that ever drank the way that I drank. Okay, and there's that identification. He understood right away that this is a man. And in fact, he said, I'm going to give this guy 15 minutes of my time, and that's it. And they ended up, of course, speaking for hours because they started to speak the language of the heart. And there was a level of understanding and a level of compassion there. Okay, our book says that when properly armed with facts about ourselves, we can generally win the confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. And that until this is accomplished, little or nothing else can be done. Okay, and it wasn't until I had an effective step one experience and learned that I was in a trap that I could not get out of. That step one is a death sentence. Okay, step one is not a declaration that I'm never going to drink again. Step one is a declaration that I am absolutely going to drink again. Without question, I will drink again without God's help. Okay, step one is an understanding that I am in a trap from which there is no escape. And once I understand that, once I have what we call an effective step one experience that I will share with you guys next week, how we generate that in our sponsees, we will then understand, we will then surrender to the rest of the program. Okay. Back to you, Brad. Let's keep going.
Hence, the two men set to work almost frantically upon alcoholics arriving in the ward of the Akron City Hospital. Their very first case, a desperate one, recovered immediately and became AA number 3.
So AA number three's name is a fellow named Bill Dotson, D-O-T-S-O-N, Bill Dotson.
He never had another drink. This work at Akron continued through the summer of 1935. There were many failures, but there was an occasional heartwarming success. When the broker returned to New York in the fall of 1935, the first AA group had actually been formed, though no one realized it at the time. A second small group promptly took shape at New York, to be followed in 1937 with the start of a third at Cleveland. Besides these, there were scattered alcoholics who had picked up the basic ideas in Akron or New York, who were trying to form groups in other cities. By late 1937, the number of members having substantial sobriety time behind them was sufficient to convince the membership that a new light had entered the dark world of the alcoholic.
So it was around 1937. We were still connected with the Oxford group up until that point, and it was around 1937 in Cleveland that some folks began to feel like we needed our own thing. We needed to separate from the Oxford group and start our own meetings. No one knew what that was really going to look like yet, and we didn't really have the 12 steps written yet. But that little by little, that's how we started to kind of pull away and start our own fellowship based on the number of successes that we had.
It was now time, the struggling groups thought, to place their message and unique experience before the world. This determination bore fruit in the spring of 1939 by the publication of this volume. The membership had then reached about 100 men and women. The fledgling society, which had been nameless, now began to be called Alcoholics Anonymous from the title of its book. The flying blind period ended and AA entered a new phase of its pioneering time.
Okay, so I talked about this last week. I won't go on and on about it, but just to say that we are named after the book, not the other way around. Okay, the name of the book is Alcoholics Anonymous. We are a fellowship that is named after the book. Okay, we are a book that gave rise to a fellowship. And today, as I've said, and I think it's absolutely right that too often we are now a fellowship that also happens to have a book from time to time. Okay. And we need to, I believe I need to be in the book. I need to have my sponsees in the book. My home group, primary purpose group, is based in the book. Okay, that's what we do. We study this book and nothing else. Okay, and we believe, and you'll see why. We're gonna talk about this in a little bit. Because Alcoholics Anonymous really grows from this book. It doesn't grow because people get sober out of the blue and go start meetings. Alcoholics Anonymous grows because copies of this book land around the world, and people get copies of this book, the literature, they read the book, they do what's in the book, and have a spiritual awakening as a result. And then they go carry that message to other people. And that's how Alcoholics Anonymous grows. Okay. Not from 90 meetings in 90 days, or we'll refund your misery. Okay. Not from just don't drink even if your butt falls off. Not from, oh, just play the tape through and don't drink no matter what. Okay. No, anything short of a spiritual awakening as the result of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm doomed to die an alcoholic death. I know that, I believe that, and that's why I need to be in this book, and that's why apparently that's why we're all here on the Tuesday night big book study. So perhaps I'm preaching to the choir. Brad, back to you.
With the appearance of the new book, a great deal began to happen. Dr. Harry Emerson Fosdick, the noted clergyman, reviewed it with approval. In the fall of 1939, Fulton Osler, then editor of Liberty, printed a piece in his magazine called Alcoholics and God. This brought a rush of 800 frantic inquiries into the little New York office, which meanwhile had been established. Each inquiry was painstakingly answered. Pamphlets and books were sent out. Businessmen traveling out of existing groups were referred to these prospective newcomers. New groups started up, and it was found, to the astonishment of everyone, that AA's message could be transmitted in the mail as well as by word of mouth. By the end of 1939, it was estimated that 800 alcoholics were on their way to recovery. In the spring of 1940, John D. Rockefeller Jr. gave a dinner for many of his friends, to which he invited AA members to tell their stories. News of this got on the world wires. Inquiries poured in again, and many people went to the bookstore to get the book Alcoholics Anonymous. By March 1941, the membership had shot up to 2,000. Then Jack Alexander wrote a feature article in the Saturday Evening Post and placed such a compelling picture of AA before the general public that alcoholics in need of help really deluged us. By the close of 1941, AA numbered 8,000 members. The mushrooming process was in full swing. AA had become a national institution.
Okay, I just want to talk very quickly, and clearly we're going to go over time here, guys. I'll try to keep it to just another 15 minutes. It's hard to kind of take off and land the plane perfectly every time. So if you need to drop off, by all means, I promise you my feelings will not be hurt. You will not end up on my fourth step if you have to drop off. Okay, I promise. This always intrigued me. You can go online, you can read this Jack Alexander article in the Saturday Evening Post that he wrote about Alcoholics Anonymous. What's not known, and what you can't find out from just reading the article, is that Jack Alexander was a famous writer for the Saturday Evening Post, and really built his career on exposing frauds. Okay, that's what he did. That's what he was known for. Prior to this story, he had just written an article about the Philadelphia labor movement and how the Philadelphia Labor Union, rather, and how corrupt it was, and that was all tied to organized crime and so on and so forth. And he broke it apart and exposed it, and so on and so forth. And pats on the back, good job, Jack. And hey, now his publishers said, now we've been hearing about this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, and they're saying that there's no profit, that they don't charge any money, and that it's all alcoholics just working with one another to get each other sober. There's got to be an angle here. There's got to be something funny going on, and we want you, Jack, to go find out what it is. And what I love is that that's exactly what he did, and he came and found out, learned about us and found out who we were, talked to us, and learned that we are exactly what we said we were. We are exactly who we say we are, and that we were, and that he was invited in, total transparency. And he was astonished that that we were genuinely an altruistic movement of alcoholics trying to keep other alcoholics sober. And that's all we were. And frankly, Jack Alexander was delighted to see that that's exactly what we were. And you can feel his delight in the story that he writes. And that's something that I always like to share, is that, you know, we are who we say we are, man. And this deal, there are a lot of things in the world that are tainted and corrupt and ugly and evil. And you know, I mean, we all know that. You can go read the news, and I always love hearing that story about Jack Alexander coming and seeing who we are, because AA, I believe, for the most part, is a very pure thing. And it's uncorruptible, because our lives depend on it. That's why. Okay. Our common welfare depends upon AA, personal recovery depends upon AA welfare, you know. And anyway, so I love that story. I always like to share that story whenever I read that. And I would encourage any of you to just Google Jack Alexander Saturday. You can post AA article and you can go find it. You can go read it. I mean, it's fascinating what he writes about. And then come talk to me about baking a cake, and you'll understand. Okay, that's code. That's code. I'll know if you've read the article or not, if you can tell me what baking a cake means. Okay, but you go read that Jack Alexander article, and I'd love to talk to you about it. Back to you, Brad. And guys, we're gonna wrap up here soon, I promise.
Our society then entered a fearsome and exciting adolescent period. The test that it faced was this: could these large numbers of erstwhile erratic alcoholics successfully meet and work together? Would there be quarrels over membership, leadership, and money? Would there be strivings for power and prestige? Would there be schisms which would split AA apart? Soon AA was beset by these very problems on every side and in every group. But out of this frightening and at first disrupting experience, the conviction grew that AAs had to hang together or die separately. We had to unify our fellowship or pass off the scene. As we discovered the principles by which the individual alcoholic could live, so we had to evolve principles by which the AA groups and AA as a whole could survive and function effectively. It was thought that no alcoholic man or woman could be excluded from our society, that our leaders might serve but never govern, that each group was to be autonomous, and there were to be no professional class of therapy. There were to be no fees or dues. Our expenses were to be met by our own voluntary contributions. There was to be the least possible organization, even in our service centers. Our public relations were to be based upon attraction rather than promotion. It was decided that all members ought to be anonymous at the level of press, radio, TV, and films. And in no circumstances should we give endorsements, make alliances, or enter public controversies. This was the substance of AA's 12 traditions, which are stated in full on page 561 of this book. Though none of these principles had the force of rules or laws, they had become so widely accepted by 1950 that they were confirmed by our first international conference held at Cleveland. Today, the remarkable unity of AA is one of the greatest assets that our society has. Well,
okay, I'm gonna talk very briefly about the traditions. So the traditions are really captured for the first time, and you can even see their initial framework in the preface to this book. But they're really codified into 12 traditions for the first time in 1947 in the Grapevine. And it's funny that they say they'd been so widely accepted that they were confirmed by our first international conference in 1950. It's not entirely true. A lot of people did not want the traditions whatsoever. They don't, I mean, we're defiant alcoholics. We're defiant, childish alcoholics. Don't tell me about rules. Don't give me rules. Okay. And so a lot of people pushed back on the 12 traditions, and it took people still push back on the 12 traditions after all this time, and we could get into all that, but I won't. I'll be a good guy tonight. I'm not going to do that. That's really the genesis behind the 12 and 12. The 12 and 12 was written primarily as an addition to the big book, and I think it's a very valuable book. In fact, my home group is starting a 3rd weekly meeting where we're gonna read the 12 and 12. So I don't dismiss the 12 and 12, but a big part of the reason that Bill wrote those initial 12-step essays was to bookend it with those 12 traditions. to help sell the rest of the fellowship on the 12 traditions. Because they hadn't necessarily, by 1955, when the 12 and 12 is published, they still hadn't been greatly accepted. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you. I'm going to be doing a podcast. I've been invited to do a 12 series podcast on each one of the 12 traditions. If anyone's interested in that, I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know. I've got like an hour to talk about tradition one. Like, you know, we might do a little bit less, might do like a few traditions a week or something like that, but I'll let you guys know where that's happening. That's a great question, Maribel. I love that you're asking that question. Can someone, Alex, you have the login. Vincent, you have the login for PPG. You go to it all the time. Would you be kind enough to put it into the group chat for Maribel? Highly recommended. You come check out Primary Purpose Group, Maribel. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. So guys, look, this next part, if there's one thing really that I want you to take away from tonight, it's this next paragraph. So please read it for us, Brad.
This was the substance of AA's 12 tradition. Oh, I read that one. While the internal difficulties of our adolescent period were being ironed out, public acceptance of AA grew by leaps and bounds. For this, there were two principal reasons: the large numbers of recoveries and the reunited homes. These made their impressions everywhere. Of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapses, and among the remainder, those who stayed on with AA showed improvement. Other thousands came to a few AA meetings and at first decided they didn't want the program, but great numbers of these, about 2 out of 3, began to return as time passed.
So guys, that's just confirming what we were talking about earlier, okay? 1935 to 1955 of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapses, and the remainder who stayed on with AA showed some improvement, okay? That's a 75% recovery rate. That's what I hear, okay? And if anyone wants to, you know, is curious what the global estimates of recovery are in Alcoholics Anonymous worldwide, we're talking single-digit percentages of people that come to AA and stay sober long-term. It's single digits. Does that mean that AA doesn't work? No. What it means is that we are getting away from AA as it was 1935 to 1955. Okay, in that time span, the only thing that there was to do was to read this book, take the actions contained within this book, and then go carry that message to someone else. And when I focus on that and nothing else, hey man, 50 to 75%, you can't debate those numbers. Okay, just like to confirm, 300,000 copies of the book went out, 150,000 sober alcoholics. Okay, conversely, 19 million copies of the book go out, 2 million sober alcoholics. Well, where is everybody? Where are all those books? Can we get those books back? Okay, like where'd the books go, man? If they were like me, and I can tell you, I was one of those guys, man. I was a chronic relapser. I used that book as a coaster for a long time. Okay, and it wasn't until I came and got devoted to this work and got devoted to this book that my life really started to change. And of the guys that I sponsor, and you know, I've got a couple guys that I sponsor on the meeting right now, and it's beautiful. And those guys are sponsoring dudes, and those guys are having 50% recovery rates as well, I would say. Okay, because they're connected. Yes, they're connected to the fellowship, and we're big on fellowship. I love me some fellowship. Okay. But I've learned there's two sides of AA. There's the fellowship and there's the program of action. Okay, in 1935 to 1955, there was only one thing to do, and that was to read this book, to do what was asked of me to do in this book, okay? And anyone who knows me knows, what do I think is the most important word in all of Alcoholics Anonymous? The word do, man. D-O, capital D, capital O, do. That is the only thing that accounts in AA. My problem is not that I don't know things. My problem is that I don't do things. in AA. That was always my problem. AA does not work for me when I want it, and AA does not work for me when I need it. AA only works for me if I do it. My grand sponsor talks about AA is like riding in an invisible boat. Okay, and you're getting an invisible boat and you're like, what the heck is going on? And it's not until you pick up the oars and start rowing that the boat will begin to appear to you in AA. Okay, that is how it works. When I pick up those oars and start rowing, you taking off, Ian? Love you lots, buddy. Pick up those oars and start rowing. That's when life changes. Okay. And so what I want to say about these percentages, guys, and what I'm about to say, I believe from the absolute bottom of my heart. The recovery rates in Alcoholics Anonymous are 100%. That is the success rate in AA. 100% success rate. How do I know that? Because our program relies on God, and God is infallible. If God is fallible, he's not God by definition. God is infallible. God is a supernatural power. Okay, and recovery rates in AA are 100%. If I will come, if I will surrender, if I will capital D, capital O, this work and nothing else, regardless of how I feel, what I think, how I feel, what I believe, none of those ever got me sober. The only thing that got me sober is when I would do the next right thing. And I have no idea what the next right thing is. That's why I have a sponsor. My sponsor tells me what the next right thing is, okay? And the next right thing is very often whatever is the next thing that Alcoholics Anonymous is asking of me to do is the next thing that I need to do. That is the next right thing. And that is certainly a pathway to sobriety. My sponsor tells me that there is spiritual surrender in just following directions. And if I will take the directions of a sponsor, guided by the directions in this book, I believe firmly, because we are based in God, that our recovery rates in AA are 100%. And if you're here and you're new and you're hopeless and you're desperate and you're suffering and you're in pain, I want you to know I understand. I understand and I empathize and I have been there many, many times. And I want you to know that we have a way out upon which we can agree and join in brotherly and harmonious action. Okay. And more to come in the coming weeks. So Brad, with that, would you wrap us up, please?
Another reason for the wide acceptance of AA was the ministrations of friends in medicine, religion, and the press, together with innumerable others who became our able and persistent advocates. Without such support, AA could have made only the slowest progress. Some of the recommendations of AA's early medical and religious friends will be found further on in this book. Alcoholics Anonymous is not a religious organization. Neither does AA take any particular medical point of view, though we cooperate widely with the men of medicine as well as with the men of religion. Alcohol being no respecter of persons, we are an accurate cross-section of America, and in distant lands, the same democratic evening up process is now going on. By personal religious affiliation, we include Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Hindus, and a sprinkling of Muslims and Buddhists. More than 15% of us are women. At present, our membership is pyramiding at the rate of about 20% a year. So far, upon the total problem of several million actual and potential alcoholics in the world, we have made only a scratch. In all probability, we will never be able to touch more than a fair fraction of the alcohol problem in all its ramifications. Upon therapy for the alcoholic himself, we surely have no monopoly. Yet it is our great hope that all those who have as yet found no answer may begin to find one in the pages of this book and will presently join us on the high road to a new freedom.
To a new freedom in the fourth dimension, baby. All right. Good deal. Okay. Love you lots, guys. Thank you everyone for coming. We'll close with the serenity prayer. And then as we always do, we'll go around the room and everyone can just say hello and let us know where you're from. This is like my favorite part of the whole deal. I just think it's the coolest, man, that we've got people from all over the world right now, all loving this book, man. So it's wonderful. So let's close. And if you guys will indulge me, let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Just because I like the Lord's Prayer sometimes. And then we'll we'll have a little chat and we'll go around the room. All right?